Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I'd do something a little different and talk about my top 10 guitarists who most influenced me and contributed to rock and roll. Okay, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to count backwards in time. I'm going to work my way back to right to the 50s where rock and roll began. And I'm going to play a few licks by each one of those artists that I picked and see if I can't kind of emulate them a little bit. And here we go. Number 10, Eric Johnson. So Eric Johnson's tone, how can you describe it? It's been described as being kind of violin-like. His licks feel like, to me, like they're backwards. I mean, he approaches his runs and feels like it's going from the top down. It's kind of very interesting, very unique, but and very technical, but very musical as well. Rooted in, you can hear the blues, you can hear that early rock and roll stuff in his style, but there's no one like Eric Johnson. I mean, as soon as you hear one or two notes, you know it's him. He has that unique tone and unique style, and he started in kind of mid-'80s. And from then to today, his tone is still pretty much the same. Always interesting, always inspirational to listen to. Number nine is a special one for me, as you can tell, right? I can't do it. Right. Okay, there. Steve Vai. I even bought the guitar. Steve Vai, I remember when I was just coming up learning to play guitar, and in around 1991, Passion Warfare came out, changed the game for everyone. I mean, he influenced me personally in a huge way. I learned so much from him, trying to emulate him, trying to learn some of those licks on that album. Blew my mind. And he also was revolutionary for guitar, really instrumental in coming up with the design for his guitar, and which really became the RG. I mean, the Ibanez RG is extremely popular. And if you want to see something truly amazing, look at some of his live performances on YouTube. It'll blow your mind. I mean, Steve Vai has pushed the boundaries beyond. I mean, amazing. He's a wizard. He's a god. Okay, number 8, Joe Satriani. You can't talk about Steve Vai without talking about Joe Satriani. Really, I thought they both deserved a spot, me personally, because I know Joe did teach Vai in the early days, but I thought that Vai took it to another place. But Joe Satriani, I mean, Surfing with the Alien, when he came out with that, it really changed the face of instrumental guitar. Really interesting story. If you ever want to dig into that online somewhere on YouTube, look up some backstory into how Joe began and how that album. I actually did an album before Surfing with the Alien and released it after Surfing with the Alien, but that one changed the face of guitar forever. Okay, number 7. Who can it be? For me, it's Stevie Ray Vaughn. Stevie Ray, what can you say, man? There's no one like Stevie Ray. I remember, he died in 1990. He was 35 years old, and he still influences people today. He influenced a lot of people, my peers and beyond. After I started playing, I started hearing of, a lot of people, obviously, like John Mayer, people like that who were really influenced by Stevie Ray. I've never heard anyone play like Stevie Ray. Just watch some of those live performances and you'll have your mind completely blown. Enough said. Stevie Ray, Guitar God. Number 6, you all know, Eddie Van Halen. He took what was already done and just I feel like Vi maybe has taken, and Satriani has taken what Eddie's done in a sense and has expanded that off into even further. But Eddie it must have been shocking at the time hearing him for the first time. Eruption, I think, was just like a one-off, one take in the studio. Been doing a ton of research on Eddie, and he's a god. Look what he did. The two-hand tapping, and I don't have to explain. You all already know. Eddie was a guitar god. Still is a guitar god. Changed the face of music forever. Not just guitar, but rock and roll. Influenced all the 80s guitarists after. And still influencing people today. Okay, now we're getting back there. We're getting back in time. Number 5, Jeff Beck. So Jeff Beck was around with all the original guys in my mind, and we'll get to them. But Jeff Beck played in the Yardbirds. Apparently this Yardbirds band, had a bunch of really, really influential guitarists. I feel like Jeff Beck is like Eric Johnson, where he's such a unique player. Such a unique style and the way that they approached the guitar. You can't copy Jeff Beck. There's only one Jeff Beck. Listen to his solo work, his solo albums. He also played on a lot of albums, ton of albums, and if you ever want to be convinced, just look up some live performances. And he's still doing it. Still amazing. Highly influential guitar god. Number 4, Eric Clapton. Also played in the Yardbirds. Had a really interesting career. If you want to look up something cool, look up Eric Clapton playing with John Lennon. Eric Clapton, he started playing Gibsons and Cream. Listen to some of the Cream stuff. Transitioned to Strat later on. This guy is Had some great records, as well as being extremely influential to everyone that came after him. I remember seeing online the saying of Clapton is God. I mean, he changed rock and roll. He changed guitar forever. He's a god. Number 3 for me. I mean, some people's going to say it should be number 1, but there's no number 1 here per se. It's just going back in time. Jimi Hendrix. So you can't have any list without including Hendrix. Hendrix, man, I think he was 28 when he died. Was he 27, 28? I can't remember. Insane. What he did for guitar in the 60s. I think 1970 he died. Again, I feel like Hendrix was one of those guys like Eddie and Steve Vai. If I had to put them together, I would say Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, and Vai. They kind of had experimental part of their playing. Like, they weren't afraid to go beyond the boundaries of normal guitar playing. They just broke all the rules, changed music by doing it, iconic playing, iconic performances, live performances, and then Jimmy's work in the studio, All Along the Watchtower. Come on. Just the solo in All Along the Watchtower is enough to say he's one of the greats. I don't have to say a lot about Hendrix. Hendrix, number 3 for me. Okay, now we're getting down. Number 2, Jimmy Page, of course. For me, Jimmy Page, man, he's like Hendrix. He's from another planet or something. Played in basically one band that changed rock and roll. His guitar playing, otherworldly, not just his rock guitar playing, but I mean, even some of the acoustic stuff they've done and all the kind of more, some of the slower songs, not just the rock riffs, but just the rock riffs alone, man. Played in the Yardbirds too. What's with the Yardbirds? Yeah, extremely influential. His playing, his licks, his blues-based licks. Used a Telly, used the Les Paul, 2 of my favorite guitars. Really influential for me. Really took a deep dive into his stuff when I started playing. After a few years was playing guitar, I dove into the Zeppelin stuff and really got into Jimmy's playing. Page, man. Page is it. And he's the coolest guitarist of all time. Number 1, could we get a drum roll? Chuck Berry. Now, I think a lot of people forget Chuck Berry, but when I listen to Chuck Berry, I hear Jimmy Page. I mean, those licks, Chuck, what he did back in the 50s? Maybe there's other guitarists that I haven't heard of from the 50s, I'm sure. But when you think 50s guitar, you think Chuck Berry influenced people. All the guys from the 60s, the Stones and the Beatles, in a major way. I'm sure he influenced Zeppelin and everybody else. But Chuck Berry, I mean, his showmanship, his licks, his two-note guitar licks, authentic. When I think Chuck Berry, I think authentic. And for me, he's the king of rock and roll. He's been called the father of rock and roll. I mean, Elvis is the king of rock and roll. But he was more, it was rock and roll, but it was almost like, feels like pop rock and roll. Chuck Berry, crazy good musician, very spontaneous. No two performances are the same live. I can just listen to his stuff for days. I love it. I just love Chuck Berry's stuff. For me, he's the number one. He is the guitar godfather. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Most of my views come from non-subscribers, so that tells me that a lot of my subscribers are not seeing the videos. If you like it, just hit the subscribe button if you can, and hit the notification bell if you want. And thanks for watching.